My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 42 years old. For over a decade, I was the backbone of a company I helped grow from a dusty garage corner to a $12 million revenue machine. And still, I was fired. I remember the exact moment it happened. It was a Wednesday, 10:42 a.m. I was in the middle of preparing our quarterly growth report. The numbers were good, no great. We just closed 2 major clients, our churn rate was at its lowest, and projections were off the charts. Then I got the email. Please report to HR, immediately. That's it. No subject line. No salutation. No explanation. I walked in, and they didn't even let me sit down. 2 people I'd known for years, eyes down, lips tight, slid a termination letter across the table like it was a court summons. We're restructuring, they said. This has nothing to do with performance. I had doubled their revenue in 18 months. Took them from a struggling mid-tier tech firm to one of the fastest-growing B2B platforms in the region. And now, I was standing in the lobby, cardboard box in hand, my access revoked before I even hit the exit door. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the silence. No goodbye. No thank you. Not even a handshake. Just a cold, procedural dismissal, as if I were a number on a spreadsheet that no longer made sense. I sat in my car for a long time after that. Just sat there, watching employees I'd hired walk in and out of the building I helped build, without knowing, or maybe pretending not to know, what had just happened. The new president never showed his face that day. He didn't need to. His message was already clear. We don't need you anymore. But what he didn't know, what no one in that office knew, was that I hadn't just built the revenue. I had built the systems, the relationships, the strategy. The engine that drove that $12 million was me. They fired the engine. And 2 weeks later, that same president called me. His voice was shaky. His words jumbled. There was panic in his tone. Ethan, he said, I think we have a problem. And that's when I knew. My story wasn't over. It was just getting started. Before everything changed, I thought I had it all figured out. My morning started with a fresh cup of coffee, usually before 6 a.m., as the sun filtered through our kitchen window. My wife, Julia, would still be asleep upstairs, and I liked it that way, that quiet half hour where the world stood still and I could think, plan, prepare. I was the CEO of Nexera Tech, a company I joined back when it was just 5 guys, 3 laptops, and 1 crazy idea. We were nothing back then. Just a handful of dreamers working out of a rented co-working space, arguing over whether we could even afford a website. And yet, I loved every second of it. I poured myself into that company. Late nights, early mornings, client meetings, product development, troubleshooting, strategy, everything. I wasn't just building a business. I was building a legacy. And it started to pay off. 5 years in, we landed our first 7-figure client. By year 7, we were profitable beyond expectations. I was promoted, trusted, respected. At least, that's what I thought. At home, things felt stable. Julia and I had been married for over a decade. No kids, by choice. We both wanted to focus on our careers. She was a corporate strategist for a big consulting firm. Brilliant, articulate, always 2 steps ahead. Our lives moved in rhythm, fast-paced, goal-oriented, achievement-driven. We bought a house in the suburbs. Nothing flashy, just something with space and quiet. I installed a punching bag in the garage. She set up a yoga room upstairs. On Sundays, we cooked together. That was our thing. Wine, music, and home-cooked pasta. It made us feel like we hadn't lost ourselves in the rush. But somewhere, between the meetings and milestones, I missed the shift. I remember one night, about a year before I got fired, Julia came home later than usual. Her blazer was wrinkled. Her hair, usually pinned up, hung loose around her face. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Rough day." Don't ask. I didn't ask. We all have rough days. But then it happened again. And again. She started locking her phone. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle shift. Her screen would dim the second I walked into the room. Her laugh changed too. That carefree chuckle I loved turned into a short, polite noise, like someone pretending to laugh at a joke they didn't find funny. I chalked it up to stress. The economy was shaky. Her firm was going through layoffs. I told myself she was just tired. We both were. But the distance grew. Quietly. Like a draft sneaking through a window you forgot to seal. You don't notice it until you're cold. Still, I buried myself in work. I told myself the company needed me. That I was doing something that mattered. At Nexera, I was leading a new initiative, a platform that would streamline client onboarding and cut customer service costs in half. It was bold, risky, but it worked. Revenue spiked. Clients were thrilled. Our CEO called me a visionary in front of the entire board. And then came the new president, Dale Stanford. Slick suit, Ivy League. The kind of guy who smiles without his eyes. From the moment he walked in, I knew we were different. I was boots on the ground. He was spreadsheets and buzzwords. But I stayed professional. Gave him every metric, every tool, every result he needed to get up to speed. He called me indispensable. And then, 8 weeks later, I was out. No explanation. No transition. Just done. And as I sat at home, box of office belongings on the floor beside me, something began to click. The late nights. The distant glances. The new president. And my wife. Had been a consultant in mergers and acquisitions for companies just like Nexera. But I still didn't want to believe it. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Because up until that moment, I thought I had built something unshakable in my career and in my marriage. Turns out, I was just standing in a house of glass. After I got fired, something inside me went silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from peace. The kind that comes from shock. I remember sitting in my car that day, still in the company parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel like I was holding on to the last piece of my identity. $12 million. I helped grow the company from the ground up. And the moment they didn't need me anymore, I was discarded. Cold. Efficient. No notice. No reason. Just a hollow HR voice telling me they were restructuring. At first, I told Julia everything. Her reaction? Not outrage. Not comfort. Just a flat, "That's how these things go, Ethan. You'll bounce back." I wanted her to hold me. Say she believed in me. Say they made a mistake. But instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and opened her laptop. And that's when I started noticing things. Little things. Like how she always kept her phone face down on the table now. Or how her calendar suddenly had client meetings at 7:30 p.m. 3 nights a week. She said she was helping a startup navigate an acquisition. "It's chaotic," she said. "They need me hands-on." Hands-on. I didn't say anything. I watched. I became someone else. The kind of man who notices the details he used to ignore. She started coming home with perfume I didn't recognize. Light, floral, expensive. Not her usual brand. She laughed more on the phone than she did with me. When I asked who it was, she'd say, "Just work. Don't worry about it." One night, I woke up to use the bathroom. It was 2:07 a.m. Her side of the bed was empty. I found her downstairs, sitting on the couch, phone in her hand. She didn't see me at first. She was smiling. Not just smiling, glowing. I cleared my throat. She jumped like she'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing up?" I asked. She stammered. "Couldn't sleep. Just scrolling." She turned her phone over. Locked screen. No notifications. "Come back to bed," I said. "I will. In a bit." I walked upstairs, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering when I became a stranger in my own marriage. A few days later, I noticed her laptop was open on the kitchen counter while she showered. The screen was locked, but a Slack notification popped up. The name said Dale Stanford. My heart didn't just sink. It crashed. Dale? As in Dale Stanford, the new president of Nexera? The man who fired me? Why was my wife messaging him? I took a photo of the screen. Just instinct. Then I walked out of the room. Later that evening, I casually asked, "You ever meet anyone at Nexera through work?" She didn't look up from her phone. No. Why? Just wondering. Small world sometimes. She smiled slightly. Yeah. Maybe. That smile didn't reach her eyes. The next morning, I started digging. Not openly. Quietly. Like I was preparing for war. I went back through my emails, tried to trace every odd meeting or unexplained decision Dale made in his short time at Nexera. There were gaps. Timeline overlaps. Decisions that didn't make sense, unless someone had been feeding him information. The data I presented in board meetings, internal forecasts, strategy slides, upcoming restructuring plans, they were only ever shared with two people, the CEO and Julia. At the time, she offered to help me make them. Pitch perfect. Said it was nice to support me. Now I wasn't so sure. One afternoon, while she was out meeting a client, I checked our shared iCloud account. We hadn't disabled photos sync in years. There it was. A photo from 3 nights ago. A restaurant I didn't recognize. 2 wine glasses. Candlelight. Julia, smiling. Dale, sitting across from her. I felt my chest tighten, not with rage, with grief. Because this wasn't just about infidelity. This was betrayal on every level. My wife. My company. My trust. And yet, I still didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I wanted to be sure. Because once I acted, there'd be no going back. So I stayed silent. And I started watching everything. Her tone when she answered unknown numbers. Her posture when she left the room to take a call. The way she avoided looking me in the eyes when I asked simple questions. I was gathering evidence, yes. But more than that, I was preparing myself to let go of the illusion. To accept that the woman I came home to every night might have handed me to the wolves, and smiled while doing it. One night, I sat alone in the garage, staring at that punching bag I hadn't touched in months. I remembered the man I used to be. Focused. Loyal. Determined. I had been blindsided. But not broken. Not yet. I picked up my phone and started making a list. A very specific list. This is the exact moment Ethan crosses from silent suspicion to confirmed betrayal, and emotionally detaches. The night I truly snapped wasn't the night I saw her photo with Dale. It wasn't the night she lied to my face about being at a client dinner. It was the night I followed her. I had told her I was heading out of town for a job interview, just a day trip. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Good luck. You've got this." But I never left town. Instead, I parked 2 blocks away from our house and waited. At 6:45 p.m., she walked out the door, hair done, makeup flawless, wearing the red dress I bought her last Christmas. She looked happy, radiant. Not the woman I came home to every night, distant, distracted, always tired. She looked like someone in love. I followed at a distance. Downtown. Valet parking. Rooftop bar. She walked in like she owned the place. Dale was already there. He stood as she arrived, kissed her on the cheek, pulled her chair out. Like a man proud to be seen with her. And she laughed. That same laugh I hadn't heard in months. I didn't go in. I didn't make a scene. I watched from across the street. Invisible. Cold. Numb. I watched as she leaned in across the table, touching his hand. I watched as they toasted. I watched as she fed him something from her plate, the same way she used to do with me. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing she had moved on, while I was still trying to save something that had already been buried. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was building a new life. And I had no place in it. At 9:22 p.m., they left together. Same car. His hand on her lower back. I stayed until the bar closed, then drove home. I sat in the dark living room, the glow of the streetlight casting long shadows across the floor. She walked in at midnight. I didn't say a word. She didn't know I had been watching. She kissed me lightly and whispered, "The client might close. Big deal." Then she went upstairs. I sat there for a long time. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. That's when I knew. There was no apology that could fix this. No explanation that would ever make it right. The woman I married was gone. And I wasn't going to beg her to come back. Show Ethan's slow, controlled rise. This is where the revenge starts to cook. No explosions. Just the quiet sound of gears turning. I stopped sleeping properly after that night. Not because I was heartbroken. That stage had passed. I stopped sleeping because my mind was on fire. Burning with ideas. Calculations. Steps. For 18 months, I'd built that company from the ground up. I had access to everything. Client files. Contract records. Internal systems. And the one thing no one else in the executive team had? The code. I wrote it. Every single line. That software, the very backbone of our company's operations, had my DNA written all over it. And no one had bothered to change the credentials. They thought I was gone. Forgotten. Dead weight. But I was still inside the system. First thing I did? Backed up every internal document onto a personal encrypted drive. Emails. Chats. Meeting recordings. Especially the files Dale had marked private. I didn't need to guess. They were discussing me. They celebrated my firing like a game one. One line from Dale stood out. "He's out. Finally. Now we can run this place right." I smiled when I read that. Let him run it. I wasn't going to burn the building down. I was going to drain it dry, then let them set the fire. I started forwarding select files anonymously to a reporter who had been sniffing around our industry for months. Whistleblower style. I disguised the IPs. Used public libraries for the drops. The story wasn't ready yet. But the seeds were planted. Next, I turned my attention to Sarah. I wasn't going to confront her. No late-night screaming matches. No exposed photos or dramatic exits. That would make me the villain. No. I needed her to show the world who she really was. So I started documenting. She came home late? I took a photo of the timestamped garage entry. She lost money? I traced it through the shared credit cards and built a spreadsheet. I even installed a voice-activated recorder under the living room couch. It caught dozens of her phone calls, all of them filled with arrogance, bitterness, and worst of all, confidence. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd rolled over. I didn't even flinch. I just kept building the case. Then I reached out to an old friend, Rick. Criminal defense turned corporate attorney. Smart, quiet, loyal. We met at a diner at 2 a.m. I gave him a USB drive and said, "I need this to land hard, but clean." He plugged it into his laptop, watched the screen for 10 minutes, and finally looked at me. "This is explosive." "I know." "And you're ready to go all the way?" "I'm already halfway there." He nodded. Over the next few weeks, we filed paperwork. Discreet but powerful. I wasn't just getting revenge. I was building a legal case to own their mess. Meanwhile, Sarah kept walking around the house like nothing had changed. We slept in the same bed, ate at the same table. But I was already gone. She didn't notice the subtle things. I stopped paying into our joint account. I moved valuables out, one by one. I rerouted all my mail to a P.O. box. I had the car title moved under my name. I even updated my will. Everything was shifting. Quietly. Surgically. And then came the trigger. One evening, I came home and found her sitting at the kitchen island, glass of wine in hand, smiling. "Dale's being promoted. Executive VP." I didn't react. Just nodded. She leaned in and added, "He says we'll be moving soon. Probably San Diego." That's when I knew it was time. She had planned to leave, without saying a word. Move in with him. Start over. I had one final thing to do. That night, I printed 3 copies of the evidence packet I'd built. One went to my lawyer. One went to the investigative journalist. And the third? I slipped it into Sarah's briefcase while she was in the shower. Let her find it on her own. Let her sweat. By the time she opened the file in her office, I'd already left the house. I checked into a hotel, took a deep breath, and waited. Because what came next wasn't rage. It was reckoning. The fallout started exactly 48 hours later. I was at the hotel gym when Rick called. "It's happening," he said. Calm. Precise. Almost amused. "What's the first hit?" I asked, wiping sweat from my brow. He laughed. "Your favorite, the press." The story broke like a damn thunderclap. Tech executive accused of fraud, misconduct, and insider manipulation by former co-founder. The article had everything. Financial records, internal chats, emails between Sarah and Dale, and most importantly, proof I had created the company's core software. They had used my product to defraud investors. That's federal. By noon, 3 investors had already pulled out. By 3 p.m., the company's stock froze. By 6, Sarah and Dale were trending on Twitter, not in a good way. Hashtags like #SarahScam and #DaleTheSnake flooded social media. I didn't post a word. Didn't need to. The story was eating them alive. At midnight, Rick called again. "SEC just opened an investigation. It's official." Good, I said. I'm in it. They'd taken my life, spit on it, and used it to climb. Now they were falling, and I wasn't even touching them. The legal case came next. Rick had filed a civil suit under my name, backed by irrefutable evidence. Breach of fiduciary duty. Theft of intellectual property. Defamation. Emotional distress. The best part? Dale's promotion came with a golden parachute clause. But because of the fraud? It was frozen. He had quit his last job to take this one. Now he had no company, no severance, and a lawsuit pinned to his chest like a scarlet letter. And Sarah? The board turned on her within hours. She tried to deny everything, cried on live TV, claimed I was a bitter ex trying to ruin her life. But the files were too specific, the timeline too exact. She was suspended, then fired, and within a week subpoenaed. She came home once, banged on the hotel door, screaming my name. I didn't open it, just stood behind the door, listening, smiling, then walked back to my room and poured a drink. Let her scream. It wouldn't change anything. By the third week, everything was ashes. The company officially shut down after the board voted to liquidate. Clients fled. Lawsuits piled in. The media kept digging, finding more dirt with each headline, but I stayed quiet. Didn't tweet. Didn't post. Didn't do interviews. The silence made it worse for them. Because silence is power. Then came the final blow. Rick called me on a rainy Thursday morning. "I've got settlement offers," he said. "Two, actually." "From them?" He laughed. "One from the company's board, to avoid a drawn-out court case. And one from Sarah's personal lawyer. She's desperate." "How desperate?" "She's offering her shares in what's left of the company, a written public apology, and she's dropping her claim to your joint assets." I leaned back in the chair, looked out the window. "I want the apology published in 3 places: her social media, the Times, and our alumni newsletter." "Done." "And Dale?" Rick's voice tightened. "He's bankrupt. They're seizing his assets next week, unless he files for protection." I took a breath, then said, "No mercy. He used me. He lied. Let him drown." Rick didn't argue. He understood. A month later, I stood in front of the old company building, now shuttered, empty. The logo had been taken down. The lights were off. It was over. A young couple walked by, tourists maybe. They stopped to take a picture of the foreclosure notice, taped to the door. I walked past them without a word, got into my car, and drove away. Not home. Not back to the life I had. That life was gone. But I had something better. Control, clarity, and peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need revenge now, because I'd already won. It's been a year now. I live in a different city. Smaller, quieter. I wake up early. I walk my dog. I eat breakfast without checking emails. I write code again, but only what I want. No deadlines. No board meetings. No sharks smiling in suits. Just peace. A few months ago, a kid at a coffee shop recognized me. He whispered, "Are you the guy who built TetherPay?" I just smiled. Didn't answer. He nodded, respectful, like he knew. Like the whole internet knew. But the truth? I don't care anymore. Because I didn't do it for fame. I didn't even do it for revenge. I did it to prove something. That you can take everything from me, but I'll still rebuild. Sarah? She vanished from the spotlight. deleted her social accounts. Word is, she's trying to start a coaching business. Irony, I know. Dale? Still in court. He tried to sue me for defamation. The judge laughed him out of the room. Rick framed the transcript. It hangs in my hallway. Makes me smile every time I walk by. Some people think revenge means screaming, burning bridges, or throwing punches. It doesn't. True revenge is healing louder than they hurt you. It's building something they can't destroy. It's living free, while they drown in what they created. I'm not angry anymore. Not sad. Just free. And every time I open my laptop, every time I write a new line of code, I remember who I am. The founder. The builder. The one they underestimated. And I smile. Because they thought they buried me. But they didn't know. I was a seed.